Today I'm sharing 3 important keys to help you with your backswing. Hi there everybody, Andrew Rice out here on the Western Savannah Harbor Lesson Tee, Golf Digest Top 50 Teacher, Golf.com Top 100, and currently ranked the top teacher in the state of Georgia. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I'm going to be sharing some information today pertaining to your backswing. What should you look for? What's important? What is less important? I've picked out 3 very important keys and I'm going to go through them one by one. I'm going to share my preferences. I'm going to give you some insight as to some drills, some ideas, some things you can look for as you practice and work towards improving your backswing. And so let's really get started, kicking off with key number 1. Key number 1 is length of backswing. I know many of you, certainly I see it in my 3-day golf schools, many of you who come out to work with me share that you're looking to shorten your backswing. Well, my preference when it comes to length of backswing is I prefer a longer backswing. Why? It allows us to generate more speed and it gives us more time to get the club head, the club face organized on the way down. And I think those 2 factors are very important. That's why if you look at a group of golfers who have won, let's say, multiple major championships, there's not many who have very, very short golf swings in there. There's a whole bunch with beyond parallel, longer backswings. And so my preference certainly is a longer backswing. What should we be looking for? Whether we have a long or a short backswing, and that's really how we're going to break this up. If you've got a long backswing, what don't we want to see? What do we want to see? If you've got a shortish backswing like I do, I wish it was longer, I'm working to make it longer, what do we need to see? So let's start with the longer option, the longer backswing option. I want to make sure that if we've got that long backswing, we are not getting up to the top and letting go of the club. That's something that I see all too often, is a player letting go of the club, and that's what's creating the length in their backswing. That's a no-go, okay? That's a no-go. We cannot be doing that. Also, I don't like long swings that are long because the arms are breaking down. I like to see a measure. It doesn't have to be dead straight, that lead arm. I like to see a measure of extension in the lead arm. If you can turn back so that that club gets a long ways back there, John Daly style, he does it perfectly. Brooke Henderson does it beautifully on the LPGA Tour. Very long backswings, but because they're physically able, they're not shortcutting, they're not cheating, they're not letting go or breaking their arms down to get there. They're just physically capable of getting there. What should we look for as far as position of the club at the top? I've always been a big fan of, when the swing gets longer, I think it's important that we allow the club head to have a little bit of what we call an across the line look. The longer swing should never be long and laid off. It's hard for me to even demonstrate a long backswing. My body is so tight. I need to get flexible. I know many of you do too. But that backswing, when it's long, it's fine if it gets a little bit across the line, almost a bit like a Freddie Couples style. We've got that player with the long backswing has got all the time in the world to get the club head and the club face organized on the way down. And so long backswings, it's fine if they're across the line. We don't want to see letting go, and we don't want to see those arms breaking down in order to get it long. Shorter backswings, I think shorter backswings, that's very important because the player is limited on their time. They're limited on their ability to be able to organize this club head. And I will often see, particularly with older, tighter, inflexible golfers, is as they get to the top, they've got that stand-up shaft there. The swing isn't very long, and now they don't have time to shallow out that club head. And so what I'm going to look for when it comes to shorter backswings is we need the club head and the club face organized by the time we get to the top, because there's no time for the player to recalibrate and reorganize that club in the downswing. And so short backswings, we need something a little laid off so that as the player goes from there and they enter the downswing, the club's in a good position, the face is in a good position. Longer backswings, if it gets across the line, we've got time to organize. Okay, I hope that's clear for everybody. Point number 2 is time. How much time does the backswing occupy? And I think it's important for us to understand what the PGA Tour pretty much averages are. So I'm going to hit a shot here. I've just got a 7-iron in my hand. I've got a couple of balls teed up. I'm just going to hit one shot and just demonstrate what this time should look like. And typically I find that PGA Tour players are right about around a second. And how do we measure that? It's as the club head leaves the back of the golf ball, as the backswing starts to impact. And typically what we see is 3/4 of a second up to the top, 1/4 of a second down, and takes up a second. So the backswing is taking up 3/4 of a second. And so I will often see golfers, far more often will I see golfers that'll be too slow versus too fast. It's quite difficult to be too fast, and I will say this, my preference, faster. I like the backswing to occupy less time. Why? It gives us less time to get off kilter. It gives us less time to make mistakes and less time to think. It also, my experience is, faster backswings increase club speed at impact. And so, double bonus there, double bonus. Less time for things to go wrong and more club head speed. So let me hit one here just to illustrate this. And so I think I've timed that's pretty much 3/4 of a second up, 1/4 of a second down, 3-to-1 ratio, okay? And I don't want more time than that. 2 little drills, 2 practice aids you can take care of on the practice ground next time you're out practicing. The first one, I would love for you to tee up 3 golf balls in a row, just like I've got right here. And this one takes a bit of skill, it takes a bit of practice, but it's going to convey the sense that you need to start to get this flow, this rhythm, this tempo, this timing down in your backswing. And so here's what I'm going to advocate. Practice this. We're going to start the club head forward and we're going to get one swing in, and then from there we're going to step in and hit these 3 balls. The goal, I want you to almost, you won't, but I want you to feel like you're going to try to get these 3 balls in the air at the same time. Okay, here we go, watch this. Okay, pretty good. Last one a little thin, but I like that. The objective here is not necessarily to hit good shots. The objective is to get that time window to the appropriate size. That's really what we're looking for, okay? One more little exercise that I would like to see is this one. And this is obviously 1 ball at a time. I've got 1 ball teed up. Let's make it a little easier. We've got some other challenging elements we're adding in here, and we're looking to speed up the pace. So we're going to give the club head a rolling start, okay? And what that means is I'm going to start the club head forward, back, and I'm going to hit it. Okay, so here we go. On the backswing, you've just got to make sure you obviously miss the golf ball. 1, hit. That was nice. Okay, that's what we're looking for time frame wise. That'll help you get a sense of that pace. Okay, let's get moving. Far too many golfers out there going too slowly. Remember, slow isn't necessarily what tempo or rhythm is all about. Let's get the club head moving. Let's get the ball moving in turn. Point number 3, club face in the backswing. What should our club face be doing? And I'm once again going to divide you out into 2 groups. If you're typically somebody that hits the ball overly high, you hardly ever take a divot, it's hard for you to punch out when you're in the trees, you typically hit the ball up into the trees, and I will say that you can oftentimes you can hit pulls and slices and blocks and hooks. You can hit a mixed bag of events, okay? Second group is going to be players that typically hit the ball too low. They create a lot of compression. Punching out is no problem for them. Playing in the wind is no problem for them. But hitting that 5-iron from the fairway, a nice high approach shot that lands on a firm, fast green and actually stays on the green, can be a challenge, okay? And so high ball hitters, what do we see? I typically see this, a club face that in the downswing is too open. I know we're focusing on backswing here, but that club face in the downswing is too open. How can we make that easier for you? There are very, very few PGA top level golfers that we see that have a club face on the way down that's too open. Why? Because now when the face is open, they're going to have to rely on a flip through impact in order to get the face square, and that tends to compromise the loft. They're going to hit the ball too high typically, and they're going to have a hard time controlling the accuracy. If that's you, listen up. Here's what we're going to look for. I think to make compression, that penetrating ball flight, that much easier, we're going to need to make it easier for you. And how do we do that? We've got to make club face organization easy, and we're going to do that by starting to get that lead wrist flat. We don't need to change our grip, but I want to see in the early part of the backswing, notice how the club face is tipped down. As we get up to the top, how that club face has a closed look. My lead wrist is very flat right there. That's what we're going to look for. If you tend to be that high ball hitter, why? Because on the way down, this is the all important piece. On the way down, we've got to have that club face stronger. Tipped down instead of tipped up, because tipped up means I've got to flip and scoop. Tipped down means I'm going to be able to get my hands forward and compress that golf ball that much better. Okay, and so a great little feel here, a good little checkpoint drill if you're that high ball scoopy player to strengthen the club face is we're going to go to here. I've got the club face tipped down, I've got that lead wrist just a little bowed, maybe flat, and then from here I'm going to wind up and hit some low little penetrating shots. That's something I have no problem with. I typically hit the ball too low, get my club face a little too closed. The opposite end of the spectrum, what if you tend to hit the ball too low? Something that I struggle with. I would much prefer to see this group of golfers in their backswing working towards something that most PGA Tour players do. If you hit the ball too low, that essentially means you've got your handle forward enough, you're de-lofting the club face enough, and so now we actually might need to feel like we're getting a little bit more this way coming into impact. How can we facilitate that in the backswing? Here's what I'm going to look for. As you're going back, I want the club face vertical. And as we get up to the top, I'd like to see a little bit of crease, almost a situation where the club face is going to be hanging down slightly. It's not hanging down vertically, but it's just tipped down slightly. That's a closed face, that's a more open face. Someone who hits the ball too low, like myself, I need to work towards getting that sense of hanging the toe and getting the club face in a better position. And so I'm going to flip this exercise around, and instead of getting the lead wrist bowed and the face tipped down for the high ball hitter, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to get the club face more vertical there, the lead wrist slightly bowed. We're going to go to there, and now I'm going to feel like I just wind up and see if I can hit this high. Oh no, it was a lot higher. Okay, a lot higher. It's amazing what that can do for you. Just those concepts, those ideas. I certainly hope some of this information helps. We've got number one, let's make sure we understand the length of our backswing and where we need to be. Number two, how much time are we taking in the backswing? And number three, let's attend to and make sure we've got the club face organized. And a lot of that's going to come from our wrist angles. Let's get that club face to match what our patterns are. And if we can do that, we're going to hit better shots. We're going to have more fun. We're going to shoot lower scores, and who wouldn't want that? Thanks so much for tuning in. Please, if you enjoyed this video, give us a subscribe and share it with anyone you feel might benefit. Cheers.